Welcome to the Stirring Pod, the podcast where youth voices are shared and heard. We are your hosts, Thomas.
Ayat,
Sarah,
and Luke.
Today we're going to be talking about the Black Lives Matter movement and on how it was first started. We will have an interesting and insightful conversation for you throughout the show, so make sure you listen all the way through. Now, before we do anything, we have to thank our supporter, the Suffolk University. Thank you for supporting the course and the podcast, right, guys? About the safety guidelines and as they welcome the new students and the old students into the fourth semester.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
welcome back.
Welcome back.
We are so excited to welcome everyone back to campus, but things are going to look and feel a little different this semester.
Changes have been made in classrooms, lounges, residence halls, dining areas, even stairwells to make sure everyone is safe.
And it is going to take all of us following the rules and using our best judgments to make sure the system works. Every RAM plays an essential role in stopping the spread of COVID-19.
We are going to need to work together to keep our community healthy and open.
Wear masks, stay 6 feet apart, and no more than 8 people per 1,000 square feet.
And for heaven's sakes, wash your hands.
We all want to get back to normal as soon as possible. The only way to do that is if we work together now. Follow the rules, make good decisions.
Wash your hands.
so before beginning our topic for today, we first want to recognize our position in this space because none of us are Black students. But we really found it important to speak up and use any platform that we have in order to speak about injustices occurring. And we feel that this podcast would be a great space to converse, educate ourselves, and as well as others about the history of this important movement and as well as what is happening today. Also, just to have a space where people can find ways to help out, for example, places to donate to, petitions to sign, companies to not support, and more. Always make sure to let us know things that we could change or add because it's very important for us to improve and hold ourselves accountable.
To begin to talk about the start of the Black Lives Matter movement more in depth, it is crucial to know where it started in order to see how previous generations went about addressing what was happening. Ayat, can you take us through some backstory in order to reinforce or educate the audience on key things that took place?
Yeah, of course. So the phrase Black Lives Matter was first created in 2013 in a Facebook post by a girl named Alicia Garza. And her post was called A Love Letter to Black People. And at the very end of her post, the last sentence that she wrote was, Black people, I love you, I love us, our lives matter.
Black people, I love you, I love us, we matter, our lives matter, Black Lives Matter.
Wow, how did that turn into the phrase Black Lives Matter exactly?
Great question, Thomas. So one of Garza's friends at the time, her name was Patrice Cullors, she took those last 3 words that Garza wrote and she changed them into the hashtag Black Lives Matter. And her post helped reach a good number of people at the time through social media on Facebook mostly, especially because Garza already had a pretty large platform that she used to always address issues that were going on in the US.
Another thing to add to that, Ayat, is that during the time, and one of the key reasons to why Garza made the post is that George Zimmerman was acquitted for the murder of 17-year-old Trayvon Martin, who was shot to death. And people were devastated and angry because of what happened. So Garza took a moment to write something to try and help stand by the community.
And also keep in mind that also Black Lives Matter did not reach a much bigger group of people until a year later when 18-year-old Michael Brown was fatally shot by a police officer in Ferguson. The news about this occurrence began to spread and reached many through Twitter. People from all over did their best to find a way to get to Ferguson and attend the protests and rallies that started to happen.
You guys, look at how far we have come. It is so amazing to see how the older generation respond, even though they had less resources and form of communication compared to what we have now. If we found a way to make things happen and get people's attention to the key things that are happening today.
Yeah, I definitely agree. They use a lot of like grassroots projects and mailing lists and like different ways to meet people and organize things like through more face-to-face interactions.
Yeah.
Well, let's get back to the start of the movement. Many people came from different parts of the U.S. to actually attend these protests, when many have actually never attended one before, which is showing how much change we're creating. This really created a united front against the enemy of racism and police brutality.
Yeah, there was even people who would give others rides to the protests who did not have a means of transportation as well as to keep them safe from harm.
Yeah, and to continue to bring up how Twitter was used as a big space to like talk about this issue, they used the hashtag Black Lives Matter, and it began to spread a lot. And it also reached a peak of 146,000 tweets at the time, which compared to today isn't like a lot since more people are on social media, but at the time it was a really big deal.
True. It's also back then Twitter more news oriented than now.
Yeah, I agreed. In the past, people had less access and less exposure of social media than we have today. There was a line of perception of technology as the fake world versus the real world we live in. The acceptance of technologies was one of the many values which is different between those days and today.
And instead of going on social media, a majority of adults go participate in social groups, which is another outlet which people find each other with similar interests.
I think you're gonna all agree with me when I say, at the end of the day, no good effort is a bad effort, which we're seeing.
Question: do you guys know any of the impact or changes of previous generation that have implemented on the society today?
Yeah, first of all, I would just want to clarify that for us to be where we're at today is because of the efforts of the earlier generations. And I would never place Gen Z in previous generation shoes. And second, many adults, including our parents today, have transitioned themselves to not only continuing the fight for racial justice, but also continuing to educate themselves and others around them.
They are also teaching their children about the reality and how even though there are terrible injustices happening in this country, it is more important for us to fight for change. Also, they're starting to pay attention to brands and businesses' messages and representations of equality in the workplace.
In fact, I know that actors such as Kerry Washington,
something completely undeniable,
and Regina King
is necessary,
constantly worked on spreading the awareness of inclusion and representation throughout the medias, not to mention Kamala Harris as the new potential and hopefully the vice president of the United States.
I think that's fantastic.
Also, if we look at the history textbooks, as biased as the book may be, there are some good examples like the Greensboro sit-in, the park sit-ins on the bus.
Definitely, it's important to speak up about these things, no matter your background, race, religion, age, or gender, to continue the fight that others in history have led, and to also take away those biases and show the true history. It's just the right thing to do.
It is quite inspiring to see the work of those before us leading up to today. It really puts things into perspective.
Cannot agree more. And even just us sitting here right now and using our platform to engage in conversation and educate ourselves and others also show the progress that is being made even today.
Overall, I think previous generations have done a decent job managing all the negativities with the Black Lives Matter movement, or any movements for that matter.
Absolutely. However, it is important for everyone, whether they are young or old, to keep this conversation going and contribute to good causes that are happening. Just keep it real.
Make sure stirring the pot if you haven't already, where we break down this week's episode.
So thank you guys for listening to Stirring the Pod. And before we go, make sure to show some love for your favorite podcast by leaving us a review on Spotify. Also, we just want to highlight some places to go in order to keep showing support every episode. So one is the Incarceration Reform Organization. to donate to, which is called the Equal Justice Initiative. And the second is the Brave Space Alliance, which is a Black-led and trans-led LGBTQ center in Chicago. But don't worry, we're going to have everything linked in the description of this video so you guys can check it out and help out.
Then stay tuned next week where we will discuss the role of Gen Z in the Black Lives Matter movement.